Hey folks, welcome back. Sorry about that. I had a technicality where it dropped out. This is part two of the same video. Welcome back to the Carpentry Warehouse. I'm plainly going to nail it this time. All right, so let's join me. I'm here on 116. Let's go to the bottom there. This is Ma talking. Pick up where we left off. She said, "Tom, I hope things are all right in California." He turned and looked at her. What makes you think they ain't? Well, nothing. It seems too nice, kinda. I seen handbills fellas pass out and how much work there is and high wages and all. And I seen in the paper how they want folks to come and pick grapes and oranges and peaches. That'd be nice work. Tom, picking peaches. Even if they wouldn't let you eat none, you could maybe snitch a little ratty one on us one sometimes. And it'd be nice under them trees working in the shade. I'm scared of stuff so nice. I ain't got faith. I'm scared of something. Ain't so nice about it. Tom said, "Don't roust your faith, bird. High, and you won't have to do no crawling with the worms." I know that's right. That's scripture, isn't it? I guess so, said Tom. I could never keep scripture straight since I read a book named The Winning of Barbara Worth. Ma chuckled lightly and scrunched the clothes in out of the bucket, and she wrung out overalls and shirts, and the muscles of forearms corded out. Your pa's pa, he quoted scripture all the time. He got it all rolled up too. Is with Dr. Miles' almanac. He got mixed up. He used to read every word in the almanac out loud, letters from folks that couldn't sleep and had lame backs, and later he'd give them people for a lesson, and he'd say that's that's a parable from the scripture. Your pa and Uncle John troubled him some about it when they'd laugh. She piled run clothes like cord one on the table. They say it's 2,000 miles where we're going. How far you think it is, Tom? I've seen it on a map, big mountains like on a postcard, and we're going right through them. How long do you suppose it'll take to go that far, Tommy? I don't know, said Tom. 2 weeks, maybe 10 days if we got luck. Look, Ma, stop worrying. I'm going to tell you something about being in the pen. You can't go thinking about when you're going to be out. You'd go nuts. You got to think about that day and then the next day and the ball game Saturday. That's what you got to do. Old timers does that. A new young fella gets to button his head on the cell door. He's thinking how long it's going to be. Why didn't you do that? Just take every day. So Mom's worried about this and Mom's worried about that. And Tom says, let's worry about today. Step at a time. That's a good way, she said. And she filled up her bucket with hot water from the stove and she put in dirty clothes and began punching them down into the soapy water. Yeah, that is a good way. But I like to think how nice it's going to be, maybe, in California. Never cold and fruit every place and people just being in the nicest places. Little white houses in among the orange trees. I wonder that is. I wonder that is if we all get jobs and all get work, maybe we could get one of the little white houses and little fellas can go out and pick peaches, oranges right off the tree. They ain't going to be able to stand it. They'll get the yelling. So sorry about the interruption there. So Ma has her dreams too. Grandpa want to grab all of the grapes and smash them all over his face. Ma, she has this dream of this little white house out in the orchard, a little place that could call her own. So Grandpa's not the only one with dreams. Tom watched her work and his eyes smiled. It done you good just thinking about it. Well, I know the fellow from California. He didn't talk like us. You'd have known it because he come from some far off place just by the way he talks. But he says there's too many folks looking for work right now. And he says the folks that pick fruit live in dirty old camps and don't hardly get enough to eat. He says wages is low and hard to get any. Ooh. A shadow crossed her face. Oh, that ain't so, she said. Your father got a handbill on yellow paper telling how they need folks to work. They wouldn't go to that trouble if there wasn't plenty of work. It cost them money to get them handbills out. What do they want to lie for? And costing money for them to lie. Tom shook his head. I don't know, Ma. It's kind of hard to think why they've done it. Maybe. He looked out at the hot sun shining on the red earth. Maybe what? Maybe it is nice, like you say. Where'd Grandpa go? Where'd the preacher go? Ma was going out of the house, her arms loaded high with clothes. Tom moved aside to let her pass. The preacher says he's going to walk around. Grandpa's asleep here in the house. He come in here during the day and lays down sometimes. She walked to the line and began to drape pale blue jeans and blue shirts and long gray underwear over the wire. All right, so no word on whether Tom is willing to break his parole or not and go with it. Kind of seems like he plans on going, but Ma, there's kind of two conflicting stories about California. Tom says, look, I ran into a guy in the pen and he says that there's too many people. You have to live in dirty camps and there's not enough work for everybody. Ma says the other story of California and that there's plenty of work. Your pa has a handbill, and I'll show you one of those handbills. Look at some of them. Your pa has a handbill saying there's plenty of work. And so I don't know which one's right. Maybe they both are. I guess the only way we find out is if we read on. Behind him, Tom heard a shuffling step and he turned to look in. Grandpa was emerging from the bedroom. And as in the morning, he fumbled with the buttons of his fly. I heard talking, he says. Sons of bitches won't let an old fella sleep. When you bastards get dry behind the ears, you'll maybe learn to let an old fella sleep. His furious fingers managed to flip open the only two buttons of his fly that had been buttoned, and his hand forgot what it had been trying to do. His hand reached in and contentedly scratched under his testicles. Ma came in with wet hands in her palms, puckered and bloated from hot water and soap. I thought you was sleeping. Here, let me help you with that. Let me help you button up. And though he struggled, she held them and buttoned his underwear and his shirt and his fly. You go around a sec, she said, and let him go. And he sputtered angrily. Fella come too nice when somebody buttons them. I want to be let to button my own pants. Ma said playfully, they don't let people run around with their clothes unbuttoned in California. They don't, eh? Well, I'll show them. They think they're going to show me how to act out there. Well, I'll go around hanging out if I want to. Ma says, seems like his language gets worse every year. Showing off, I guess. And the old man thrust out his bristly chin and regarded Ma with his shrewd, mean, merry eyes. Well, sir, he said, we'll be starting for long now. And by God, there's grapes out there just hanging out over the road. Know what I'm going to do? I'm going to pick me a wash tub full of grapes and I'm going to just sit in them and scrounge around, let the juice run down my pants. Tom laughed. By God, if he lives to be 200, you'll never get Grandpa house broke, he said. You all set and going, ain't you, Grandpa? The old man pulled out a box and sat down heavily. Yes, sir, he said. And goddamn near time, too. My brother went out there 40 years ago. Never heard nothing about him. Sneaky son of a bitch he was. Nobody loved him. Run off with my single action Colt of mine. Yeah, if I ever run across him and his kids, if he got any out in California, I'll ask him for that Colt. But if I know him and he got any kids, he cuckooed them and somebody else is raising them. I'm sure we'll be glad to get out there. Got a feeling it'll make a new fella out of me. Go right to work in the fruit. Okay, so now Grandpa's not just smashing on his face, he's bathing in them, filling a bathtub with grapes and getting right up in the mix. Ma nodded. He means it too, she said. Worked right up into 3 months ago when he throwed his hip out the last time. You're damn right. Tom looked outward from his seat on the doorstep. Hey, here comes the preacher, walking around the backside of the barn. Ma said, curious grace I ever heard that he give this morning. Wasn't hardly no grace at all, just talking, but sounded like it was a grace. He's a funny fella, said Tom. Talks funny all the time. Seems like he's talking to himself, though. He ain't trying to put nothing over. Watch the look in his eye, said Ma. He looks baptized. Got that look they call looking through. He sure looks baptized and walking with his head down and staring at nothing but the ground. There's a man that's baptized. She sat and she was silent, for Casey had drawn near the door. You're gonna get sun shook walking around like that, said Tom. Casey said, well, yeah, maybe. He appealed to them suddenly, to all of them suddenly, to Ma and Grandpa and Tom. I got to get going west. I got to. I wonder if I can go along with you folks. And then he stood embarrassed by his own speech. We will find out whether he is allowed to go with those folks when I get back from Chicago. Read up, be ready to talk about this. The quicker you talk about this, the more we get done tomorrow. We'll see you then. Thanks for tuning in.